You have been lied to. They told you the 800 military bases circling the globe were a shield for your freedom. They told you that as long as we had the biggest guns, your 401k was safe. They were wrong. Today, those same bases are not protecting your wealth. They are consuming it. While you stare at our aircraft carriers, the dollar in your pocket is dying. This is stage 6. The lead standard is failing, and in the next 30 minutes, I will show you why the world's most powerful military is the exact reason you are going broke. Welcome to the end of the grand illusion. Chapter 1. The Grand Illusion, the 800 Base Paradox. Imagine for a moment that you are standing on the deck of a Ford-class aircraft carrier. It is a 100,000-ton fortress of steel, powered by 2 nuclear reactors, carrying over 70 lethal aircraft and costing $13 billion of your taxpayer money. To most Americans, this is the ultimate symbol of security. We have been told for 80 years that as long as we have the biggest guns, the fastest jets, and the most advanced missiles, our way of life is untouchable. We believed that military dominance was a steel vault that kept our life savings, our 401ks, and the purchasing power of the US dollar safe from the rest of the world. But today, a strange and terrifying paradox is unfolding. We have nearly 800 military bases scattered across more than 70 countries. We spend more on our military than the next 10 countries combined. Yet, as you walk down the aisle of your local grocery store, you feel a sense of vulnerability that no carrier strike group can defend against. You see the price of eggs, milk, and bread climbing every single month. You see your retirement account stagnating while the cost of living explodes. You find yourself asking the question that the mainstream media refuses to answer. How can we be the most powerful nation in human history, yet our citizens are struggling to afford a middle-class life? The answer is something I call the lead standard. For decades, we were told the US dollar was as good as gold. After 1971, they told us it was backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. But in reality, for the last 50 years, the dollar has been backed by lead. It has been backed by the threat of military force. It was an unspoken global agreement. Use the dollar or face the consequences. This was the mechanism that allowed us to export our inflation and live beyond our means. But we have now reached a breaking point. We have entered what legendary investor Ray Dalio calls Stage 6. This is the final stage of the great empire cycle. It is the moment when the cost of maintaining the empire exceeds the revenue the empire generates. Think about that for a second. Our military is no longer a shield protecting our wealth. It has become a massive, hungry engine that is consuming our wealth. We are currently facing a national debt of over $34 trillion. For the first time in history, the interest payments on that debt are becoming larger than our entire defense budget. We are borrowing money from our enemies to pay for the weapons we use to keep those same enemies in check. Does that sound like a sustainable system to you? Or does it sound like a house of cards waiting for a gust of wind? The tragedy is that most Americans are still looking at the 800 bases and feeling safe. They think Stage 6 is something that happens to other countries. They think of the collapse of the Roman Empire or the British Empire as ancient history that couldn't possibly happen here. But the math doesn't care about American exceptionalism. The math doesn't care about how many flags we wave. When a currency is backed by force, it only remains valuable as long as that force is unquestioned. But today, the world is questioning. From the streets of Riyadh to the boardrooms of Beijing and Moscow, the fear of the American enforcer is fading. The lead standard is cracking. And when it breaks, the 800 bases won't be able to stop the tidal wave of dollars returning home, crashing into our economy and wiping out the purchasing power of every family in this country. In this video, we are going to go where no one else dares. We are going to peel back the curtain on the business of war. We are going to show you why our military might is actually accelerating our financial downfall. And most importantly, we are going to show you how to move your family into the few remaining lifeboats before the lead standard officially expires. The era of the grand illusion is over. It is time to face the reality of Stage 6. Because in a world where Sumdang can no longer buy stability, only those who understand the new rules of survival will make it to the other side. Chapter 2. The Protection Racket. The Blood Oath of 1971. To understand why your grocery bills are skyrocketing today, we have to travel back to a Sunday evening on August 15, 1971. President Richard Nixon sat in the Oval Office and delivered a speech that changed the course of human history. He told the American people he was temporarily suspending the convertibility of the US dollar into gold. He called it a move to protect the dollar from speculators. He promised it was for the stability of the economy. But for the rest of the world, it was a default. It was the moment the United States told its allies, "The gold is ours, and your dollars are now just pieces of paper." Most history books stop there. They tell you we entered a new era of floating exchange rates, but they miss the most important part of the story. You see, a currency that is backed by nothing cannot remain the global reserve for long. People eventually stop believing in paper. The elites in Washington knew this. They knew that if they couldn't back the dollar with gold, they had to back it with something even more visceral, something that could be felt. They decided to back the dollar with blood and steel. In 1974, a secret deal was struck that would define the American empire for the next half-century. U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger flew to Saudi Arabia. The deal was simple, brutal, and incredibly effective. The United States agreed to provide absolute military protection for the House of Saud. We would provide them with the most advanced weapons. We would guarantee their throne against all enemies, and we would keep our 800 military bases ready to intervene at a moment's notice. In exchange, Saudi Arabia agreed to do one thing: price every single barrel of their oil in US dollars. This was the birth of the petrodollar. But in the underworld, we have another name for this. It is a protection racket. Just like the old mafia bosses who would charge a local business for protection, the United States told the world, if you want to buy the energy that runs your factories and your cars, you must first buy our paper. And if you decide to buy your oil in any other currency, our 800 bases will transform from a shield into a sword. This is the hidden meaning of the lead standard. For 50 years, the dollar has been the only currency allowed at the global gas station. This created an artificial, massive demand for the US dollar. It forced every nation on Earth to hoard our debt. It allowed Washington to print trillions of dollars out of thin air to fund endless wars and massive social programs. Because we knew the world had no choice but to swallow our inflation. As long as the oil flowed in dollars, the party could continue. But you have to ask yourself, what happens to a protection racket when the bully starts to go broke? What happens when the person selling the protection can no longer afford to keep his own house in order? This is exactly where we find ourselves in Stage 6. The agreement of 1971 was based on an American military that was unquestioned, and an American economy that was the envy of the world. But today, the math has turned against us. We are no longer the world's largest creditor. We are the world's largest debtor. We are no longer the only superpower. We are an aging giant struggling to keep its footing. Think about the nations that have tried to walk away from this racket in the past. When Saddam Hussein started selling Iraqi oil in euros, what happened? Within months, his country was invaded. When Muammar Gaddafi proposed a gold-backed African currency to replace the dollar in oil trades, what happened? He was overthrown and killed. The 800 military bases were the enforcers of the petrodollar. They were the reason the world stayed obedient. But today, the fear is gone. In June of 2024, the 50-year-old petrodollar agreement between the United States and Saudi Arabia reportedly expired without being formally renewed in its original exclusive form. Saudi Arabia is now joining the BRICS nations. They are talking about selling oil in Chinese yuan. They are talking about a world where the US dollar is just another currency, not the only currency. If the oil trade leaves the dollar, the lead standard collapses. The 800 bases become useless relics of a bygone era. because you cannot bomb a nation into using your currency if you can no longer afford the fuel for your own tanks. Richard, you need to understand that the wealth you've built over 40 years was shielded by this protection racket. You benefited from the fact that the world was forced to use our money. But the racket is breaking. The enforcers are tired. And the world is tired of paying the protection fee. When the world stops needing dollars to buy oil, those trillions of greenbacks currently sitting in foreign central banks will have nowhere to go but back to the United States. And when they hit our shores, they will compete for every gallon of gas and every loaf of bread you try to buy. That is the moment Stage 6 turns from a geopolitical theory into a personal financial catastrophe. The 800 bases are still there. The flags are still flying. But the blood oath of 1971 is being torn up in front of our eyes. And most Americans are still sleeping, unaware that the shield they've counted on is about to become a weight that sinks their entire future. Chapter 3. The Business of War. The Cannibalizing Empire. War is a business. In the United States, it is the biggest business of all. For over 80 years, the Pentagon has been the engine of our economy. We did not just build tanks and jets to fight enemies. We built them to support the dollar. This is the truth the politicians will never tell you. Every time a U.S. cruise missile is fired, it is an advertisement for American power. Every time we sell a fighter jet to a foreign nation, we are locking them into our financial system. They must buy the jet in dollars. They must buy the maintenance in dollars. They must buy the fuel in dollars. For a long time, this was a winning strategy. We used the business of war to create a global demand for our currency. It was a perfect circle. We printed money to build the military. The military secured the petrodollar. The petrodollar allowed us to print more money. But in Stage 6, the circle has broken. The business of war is no longer profitable. It is now cannibalizing the very nation that created it. Look at the numbers. They do not lie. We have spent over $8 trillion on the war on terror alone. $8 trillion. That is money we did not have. We borrowed it. We printed it. And while we were busy policing the world, our domestic infrastructure crumbled. Our middle class vanished. The business of war has a fatal flaw. It requires constant growth. It requires new enemies. It requires endless spending. But today, the cost of maintaining our 800 military bases is becoming a death sentence for our currency. Think about this. The United States now spends nearly $900 billion a year on defense. It is a staggering sum. But here is the terrifying part. For the first time ever, our interest payments on the national debt have surpassed our defense budget. Read that again. We are paying more to bankers and foreign creditors just to cover the interest on our debt than we are paying to protect our borders. When the interest on your debt is higher than your security budget, you are no longer a superpower. You are a bankrupt empire in decline. This is the hallmark of Stage 6. The military-industrial complex is now a parasite. It is eating the host. It is consuming the purchasing power of your retirement. Every time Washington sends another $60 billion overseas, they are devaluing the dollars in your bank account. They are choosing the business of war over the survival of the American family. But there is a deeper problem. The weapons themselves are changing. The world has seen that expensive aircraft carriers can be threatened by cheap drones. They have seen that our high-tech systems are vulnerable. The mirage of invincibility is fading. If the world no longer fears the enforcer, they will no longer pay the protection fee. Richard, you were raised to believe that a strong military meant a strong economy. That was true in 1950. It was true in 1990. It is a lie in 2026. Today, our military strength is a direct cause of our financial weakness. We are overextended. We are exhausted. We are a hollow empire. We have 800 bases, but we do not have enough money to fix our own bridges. We have nuclear submarines, but we cannot secure our own borders. We have stealth bombers, but we have a currency that is losing its value every single day. This is the business of war in its final stage, the stage of collapse. The Pentagon is still placing orders for new weapons. The lobbyists are still getting rich. The generals are still looking for the next conflict. But the money they are using is becoming worthless. You cannot run a global empire on a currency that is being destroyed by the very cost of that empire. The lead standard is failing because the lead is too expensive. We are trading our future for a military mirage. We are sacrificing the 401ks of millions of Americans to fund a machine that no longer works. When the business of war finally stops, the shock will be felt in every household in this country. Because when the world realizes the enforcer is broke, they will stop taking his money. And when that happens, the 800 bases will not be able to save you. They will just be 800 more places where the American dollar used to be king. It is time to look past the flags and the parades. It is time to look at the balance sheet, because the balance sheet says we are at the end of the road. Chapter 4, Stage 6, The Math of Collapse. Numbers do not have emotions. Math does not care about your political party. It does not care about American exceptionalism. It only cares about the balance sheet. And right now, the balance sheet of the United States is screaming. We have officially entered Stage 6. According to Ray Dalio, Stage 6 is the final act of a dying empire. It is the period of the great deleveraging. It is the moment when the printing presses are the only thing keeping the lights on. But you cannot print your way out of a debt trap. You can only print your way into a currency collapse. Let us look at the cold, hard reality. Our national debt has crossed $34 trillion. That is a number so large the human brain can barely process it. If you spent $1 every second, it would take you over 1 million years to pay it off. But here is the terrifying part. The speed of the debt is accelerating. We are now adding $1 trillion of new debt every 100 days. This is not a budget. This is a liquidation. For 50 years, the 800 military bases allowed us to ignore the math. They allowed us to borrow from the rest of the world at low interest rates. The world bought our treasury bonds because they were considered the safest asset. They were safe because they were backed by the strongest military. But that logic has failed. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates to fight inflation. This has triggered a mathematical death spiral. We are now forced to pay over $1 trillion a year just in interest payments. Think about that. $1 trillion every single year. Gone. That money does not build new roads. It does not pay for your Social Security. It does not buy a single bullet for the military. It is simply the price of our past mistakes. For the first time in our history, the cost of our debt is larger than the cost of our entire defense budget. This is the definition of Stage 6. When the interest on the debt is higher than the military budget, the empire is terminal. It means the enforcer is no longer working for the country. The enforcer is now working for the creditors. Richard, I want you to look at your retirement account. You have spent 40 years building your nest egg. You played by the rules. You saved. You invested. But the government did not. They spent your future to fund an empire they could not afford. Now, they are in a corner. There are only 3 ways out of this much debt. The first is to grow the economy. But we are drowning in regulations and high energy costs. We are not growing fast enough. The second is to default. But a formal default would destroy the global financial system overnight. Washington will not do that. The third way is the most dangerous. It is the way of Stage 6. They will inflate the debt away. They will print trillions more to pay off the old debt. They will pay the creditors back with dollars that are worth 50% less than they were yesterday. They are liquidating the purchasing power of the American people to save the government. Every time the 800 military bases demand more funding, the printing press runs faster. Every time we send billions to a foreign conflict, the value of the dollars in your pocket shrinks. The military is no longer protecting your wealth. The military is the reason your wealth is being inflated into non-existence. This is why the 800 bases cannot save the dollar. You cannot use a tank to stop a mathematical equation. You cannot use a stealth fighter to kill inflation. The problem is not on a battlefield in Europe or Asia. The problem is on the balance sheet of the US Treasury. The world sees the math. They see that we are insolvent. This is why nations like China, India, and Brazil are dumping their US Treasury bonds. They are not doing it for politics. They are doing it for survival. They do not want to hold the debt of a bankrupt empire that is in stage 6. When the rest of the world stops buying our debt, the Federal Reserve becomes the buyer of last resort. They print the money to buy the government's own debt. This is the final stage of currency debasement. It is what happened to the Roman denarius. It is what happened to the British pound. It is happening to the US dollar right now. Most people in Washington are still in denial. They think we can borrow forever. They think the 800 bases make us invincible. They are wrong. History shows that every empire that reached this level of debt ended in a currency crisis. No exceptions. Stage 6 is not coming. It is here. The math of collapse is final. The clock is ticking toward the moment when the world realizes the dollar is no longer a store of value. It is just a receipt for a debt that can never be paid. In the next chapter, we will look at how the rest of the world is preparing for this moment. They have already started the transition. The question is, are you ready to do the same? Chapter 5. The new multipolar reality. The rebellion of the East. The world is no longer afraid. That is the most dangerous development for the US dollar in a century. For 50 years, the 800 military bases enforced a simple rule. You trade in dollars, or you suffer the consequences. But in stage 6, the threat of force loses its power when the world finds an alternative. The turning point happened recently. Washington made a fatal mistake. They weaponized the US dollar. By freezing the foreign reserves of other nations, they showed the entire world that the dollar is not a neutral currency. It is a political tool. It is a tether that Washington can cut at any moment. Every central bank in the world saw this. They realized that their wealth was only theirs as long as Washington approved of their policies. The result was an immediate global rebellion. We are moving from a unipolar world to a multipolar reality. Leading the charge is the BRICS alliance: China, Russia, India, Brazil, and now Saudi Arabia. These nations represent over 40% of the global population and a massive share of global GDP. They are no longer asking for a seat at our table. They are building their own table. They are building a financial infrastructure that is immune to the lead standard. Think about the 800 military bases. They are designed to fight traditional wars. They are designed to secure shipping lanes and project power. But they cannot stop an electronic payment system. They cannot stop the M-Bridge project or the new digital currencies that bypass the dollar entirely. The world is choosing a new standard. They are returning to the only asset that has survived every empire for 5,000 years. They are returning to gold. Look at the data. Central banks around the world are buying gold at the fastest pace in over 50 years. Why? Because gold is the ultimate neutral asset. It has no counterparty risk. You cannot freeze gold in a digital vault in New York. You cannot print more gold to pay off your national debt. Gold is the truth standard. The US dollar is the debt standard. The world is trading in their lead standard paper for physical gold. They are preparing for the moment when the dollar is no longer the global reserve. While you are being told that gold is a pet rock by the mainstream media, the most powerful people on earth are hoarding it. They know what happens in stage 6. This creates an impossible situation for the US military. Imagine a world where oil is traded in gold or local currencies. What do the 800 bases do then? Do we invade Saudi Arabia? Do we bomb the central banks of our allies? Force only works if the target has no other choice. But the world now has many choices. The business of war is also facing a technological crisis. Our 800 bases are incredibly expensive to maintain, but they are becoming vulnerable to asymmetric warfare. A drone that costs $500 can threaten a billion-dollar facility. A swarm of missiles can threaten a multi-billion-dollar aircraft carrier. The math of warfare has flipped. It now costs us more to defend than it costs our enemies to attack. When the military becomes too expensive to protect the currency, and the currency becomes too weak to fund the military, The lead standard expires. We are watching the world decouple from the American empire in real time. This is not a theory. It is happening in the boardrooms of the East every single day. Richard, you need to understand the gravity of this shift. For your entire life, the dollar was the only game in town. That gave you a massive advantage. It meant that every other nation had to work hard to send us goods, while we simply printed paper to pay for them. That exorbitant privilege is ending. As the world stops fearing the 800 bases, they stop needing the dollar. When they stop needing the dollar, they stop lending us money. When the lending stops, the printing starts on a scale we have never seen before. The multipolar world is not a threat to our borders. It is a threat to our lifestyle. It is a threat to the purchasing power of your savings. The world is building a lifeboat for themselves. They are backing it with gold, commodities, and real trade. They are moving from a world of virtual wealth, backed by debt, to a world of real wealth, backed by assets. If the rest of the world is moving to gold, why are you still holding 100% of your wealth in a currency that is backed by 800 bases that can no longer afford their own fuel? The 800 bases will still be there tomorrow. The soldiers will still be at their posts. But the power they project is fading. The world has looked past the missiles and seen the bankruptcy underneath. The lead standard is dead. The asset-backed world is rising. In the final chapter, we are going to talk about your personal defense. We are going to look at how to build your own survival portfolio before the final transition of Stage 6 is complete. The world has changed its strategy. It is time for you to change yours. Chapter 6: The Controlled Demolition. The Great Reset Trap. History has shown us that empires do not just vanish, they are replaced. But for a new system to rise, the old system must first be destroyed. This is the hardest truth to accept. The economic chaos you see around you is not the result of incompetence. It is not a series of unfortunate mistakes by Washington. It is a controlled demolition. Think about how a skyscraper is brought down. It is not hit with a wrecking ball from the outside. It is wired with explosives from the within. The pillars are weakened one by one. The collapse is managed so that the building falls in a specific direction. Today, the US dollar is that building, and the 800 military bases are the weakened pillars. The elites in the shadow of the central banks understand that the debt standard is terminal. They know that $34 trillion can never be paid back. They know that the lead standard is failing, but they are not trying to save it. They are managing its destruction so they can usher in the next phase of global control. Why would they want the dollar to collapse? Because a desperate population is a compliant population. When the inflation becomes unbearable, when the 800 bases can no longer protect the supply lines, when the grocery store shelves go empty, that is when they will offer the solution. That solution is the central bank digital currency, the CBDC. They want to move the world from the lead standard to the digital standard. In the old system, the military enforced the currency. In the new system, the algorithm will enforce your behavior. A CBDC is not just money. It is a programmable cage. It gives the government the power to track every single penny you spend. They can see what you buy. They can see where you go. They can even decide what you are allowed to purchase. If they decide you have traveled too much, they can freeze your ability to buy gas. If they decide you have eaten too much meat, they can restrict your grocery spending. This is the ultimate goal of the Stage 6 transition. But for the CBDC to be accepted, the dollar must first become worthless. People must be so terrified of the collapse that they will beg for any system that promises stability. They are using the military-industrial complex to bankrupt the nation. They are using endless wars to drain our treasury. They are hollow out the middle class on purpose. This is why they do not fix the border. This is why they do not fix the infrastructure. This is why they allow the 800 bases to sit in decay while sending billions to foreign conflicts. They are liquidation the old America to make room for the Great Reset. Richard, you must realize that the people running the machine do not have the same interests as you. They do not care about your 401k. They do not care about your family's legacy. To them, you are a data point in a new digital economy. They are using the lead standard as a distraction. While we watch the tanks and the jets, they are rewiring the financial plumbing. They are moving the gold to the east. They are setting up the digital ledgers. They are preparing for the day the dollar dies. When the controlled demolition reaches its final phase, the 800 bases will not be used to protect the dollar. They will be used to manage the chaos. They will be used to enforce the new digital rules. The enforcer is not going away. He is just getting a new set of orders. This is the dark heart of Stage 6. It is a transition of power from the nation-state to the global technocracy. If you are waiting for the government to save the dollar, you are waiting for the demolition crew to fix the building. It is not going to happen. Their job is to bring it down. Your job is to get out before the roof collapses. The transition to the CBDC is the final trap. It is the moment the lead standard is replaced by total surveillance. You have been warned. The signs are everywhere. The debt is the fuse. The printing press is the spark. And the 800 bases are the perimeter. In the final chapter, we will talk about how to sever your ties to this collapsing structure. We will talk about how to remain invisible to their digital cage. Because the only way to win a game that is rigged is to stop playing by their rules. The demolition has started. Do not be caught inside when the final pillar falls. Chapter 7. The Sovereign Escape, Your Private Fortress. Richard, if you are still listening, you are already ahead of 99% of the population. Most people will hear the rumble of the collapsing building and run deeper into the basement. You are looking for the exit. Hope is not a strategy. Complacency is the enemy of survival. The 800 military bases are a monument to a fading era. The lead standard is a broken promise. To protect your family in Stage 6, you must stop being a passenger in the state's failing ship. You must become the captain of your own lifeboat. This is your practical blueprint for the sovereign escape. The first rule of survival: if you do not hold it, you do not own it. The banking system is built on digits. Those digits can be frozen. They can be deleted. They can be inflated away. Your first move is to transfer your paper wealth into physical reality. You must own physical gold and silver. This is not an investment for profit. This is an insurance policy for your freedom. For 5,000 years, gold has outlasted every enforcer, every general, and every failed currency. When the dollar becomes a ghost, gold remains the truth. Do not trust ETFs. Do not trust digital certificates. Buy the metal. Store it privately. Store it safely. Silver is your utility money. It is what you will use to trade for life's necessities when the digital grid goes dark. The second rule: secure your foundation. A brokerage account cannot grow food. A pension fund cannot provide clean water. In Stage 6, the most valuable asset on Earth is productive land. If you are living in a city that depends on a 3-day supply of trucked-in groceries, you are in a zone of high danger. You need to look toward the rural redoubts. You need a piece of earth with its own water source. You need a place where you can grow what you eat and defend what you own. A square foot of soil that can produce a potato is worth more than 1,000,000 digits on a computer screen in a failing bank. This is about self-reliance. This is about being the one who provides for his family when the 800 bases can no longer secure the global supply chain. The third rule: sever the digital tether. The Great Reset and the CBDC trap depend on your dependence. The less you rely on the centralized grid, the more power you have. Diversify your energy: solar, wind, wood. Become your own utility company. Diversify your communication. Learn to operate outside the mainstream surveillance networks. Most importantly, build your community. True security is not found in a bunker. It is found in a network of like-minded patriots. You need a doctor you can trust. You need a mechanic you can trade with. You need neighbors who share your values. When the lead standard fails, the only thing that will matter is the strength of your local circle. The government wants you to believe that you are helpless without them. They want you to believe that the 800 bases are your only shield. It is a lie. You are a descendant of pioneers. You are a descendant of people who built this country from the ground up without a central bank or a global empire. That DNA is still in you. Do not wait for 2026. Do not wait for the next crisis to be announced on the evening news. The transition of Stage 6 is happening right now, in the silence of the bond markets and the secret meetings of the BRICS nations. The elites have already moved their wealth. They have already secured their exits. They are leaving you to hold the bag of a devaluing currency. It is time to make your move. Pull your wealth out of the burning building. Move your family to higher ground. Invest in things that are real, things that are tangible, things that the government cannot track or tax into oblivion. The 800 bases will continue to fly the flag. The politicians will continue to make speeches, but the power has shifted. The era of the lead standard is over. The era of the sovereign individual has begun. You have the knowledge. You have the map. Now you must have the courage to act. History does not repeat, but it rhymes. And right now, the song it is singing is a warning. Only those who listen will survive the chorus. Richard, your legacy is in your hands. Do not let it be a footnote in the collapse of an empire. Make it the foundation of a new beginning. I am Fiscal Folklore. We study the past to secure the future. Stay prepared. Stay physical. Stay sovereign. The clock is at 0. The choice is yours.